All right. Well, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Nutrition Aging Resource Center and SAGE collaborative webinar. We recognize that as the Resource Center, we are experts in the field of aging nutrition. However, we can't be experts in everything and all the nuances that come with that. So we're so excited and so glad to be able to work so closely with stakeholder collaborations within the Aging Nutrition Network, such as SAGE. And Cheryl at SAGE has been fantastic to work with in all the time that I've known her. So my name is Erin Hoisington. I am a registered dietitian and I am the Nutrition Aging Content Director here at the Nutrition Aging Resource Center. And I'm going to present to you today briefly about us at the Resource Center and some of the resources that we have available when it comes to serving LGBTQ plus elders, as well as social isolation and loneliness amongst older adults in general. I will then turn it over really for the meat of our presentation today, which will be presented to you by Cheryl, and she has some really exciting stuff to share, so I'm really excited. As promised, a little bit about the Nutrition Aging Resource Center if you are not familiar yet. We are a resource center that is a collaborative agreement between the Administration for Community Living, funded by the Administration for Community Living and Iowa HHS Division of Aging and Disability Services, as well as with our partners at Iowa State University. The goal of the Nutrition and Aging Resource Center is to really support the National Aging Network, former and future Innovations in Nutrition Programs and Services grantees, and other Older Americans Act stakeholder organizations in the development and expansion of nutrition programs in states and communities. We do this by providing resources on our website, acl.gov/senior-nutrition. These can really help state units on aging, area agencies on aging, and local service providers to develop impactful, cost-effective, and person-centered services that align with the purposes of the Older Americans Act. We are also active on several of major social media channels. So if you're not already, please search for us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn with the @ symbol, Aging Nutrition. Otherwise, you can subscribe to us or follow us on those by scanning the QR code here on your link. Scanning the QR code here on your screen, or you can also access us on our website. Another thing I would encourage you to do if you haven't already is to subscribe to our newsletter, which you can get to from our website as well as from this QR code. These are really great ways to keep up to date with what's going on here at the Resource Center, such as webinars, just like the one for today. It could be new resources that we are releasing, opportunities, whether those are learning opportunities or funding opportunities. And these come from not only us, however, also those from our stakeholder organizations, such as SAGE. As those come about, we like to advertise for them as well. So moving on to the resources that we have available within our website. We, like I said, are not experts in everything. So when it comes to serving LGBTQ plus elders, we recognize SAGE is where it's at. On our Browse Resources page, under the underserved communities within the targeting strategies category, we do link to the Aging Network Planning Tools for LGBTQ plus elders from SAGE. So this is a screenshot here of just a couple of the many, many awesome resources that are available to you there. If you've not checked these out, I highly encourage you to do so. Additionally, we have resources that really aim at helping to fight the social isolation and loneliness that we know so many of our older adults face. Social connections are of vital importance for everyone, but older adults are at increased risk of loneliness and social isolation, factors that have consistently been shown to negatively affect mental and physical health. On our website, you'll find strategies to improve social connections for your nutrition program participants and their caregivers. Nutrition programs are tasked not only with providing access to nutritious food, but with strengthening connections and reducing social isolation for the older adults they serve. Older adults are at increased risk for loneliness and social isolation because of factors like living alone, loss of family and friends, or chronic illness. Discover methods to increase social connection and decrease isolation amongst older adults within these resources. Within the social isolation basics and materials section, you can find reports, fact sheets, tools, and more about the topic of social topics of social isolation and loneliness. Wow, that's a mouthful. As well as tips on connecting with older adults, especially in the virtual world that we live in, and resources that demonstrate how older Americans' ACT nutrition programs really do make a positive impact in this area. We also have a section that is dedicated to caregivers because caregivers often play a critical role in supporting the health and well-being of those they care for, and they need to pay attention to their own health as well. Nutrition programs should actively engage and collaborate with caregivers in their community. If you're not sure how to do so, it's a great place to start. All right, with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Cheryl. Cheryl, I know you have a ton of great information to share with us today. So please take it away and just let me know and I can advance slides for you as we go.
Thank you so much, Erin. Again, just really excited to be here today. Cheryl Wayland, I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the Senior Director of Special Initiatives and Partnerships at SAGE. And I've just prepared a few slides to really give some insight into LGBTQ plus aging and some of the risks for social isolation, and then also some resources and tips that you all can use in your day-to-day work. Next slide. So SAGE is the country's largest and oldest organization dedicated to LGBTQ plus aging services and advocacy. We're headquartered in New York City, and we have a growing network of SAGE Collab partners across the country. And we also lead SAGE's National Resource Center on LGBTQ plus aging. And we'll be talking about some of the other resources as we go through the slide today. Next slide. We know that about 2015, we had estimates that the LGBTQ plus population age 55 and older was at 3 million, and that this number was going to be growing close to 7 million by 2030. And part of this growth is really just because of the growing population of older adults in general. Just as our baby boom population is aging and growing, so is that segment of our society that identifies as LGBTQ plus. And every time I look at this slide, I am kind of taken aback to think that we're in 2024. So 2030 is going to be here before we know it. And, so I think we need to really start to think about, how are we preparing to serve this growing diverse segment of our communities? Next slide. And some of what we know about social connectedness is, that when we're socially connected, then, we oftentimes can relate to healthier aging. It impacts our happiness and overall well-being and even our lifespan. But for many LGBTQ plus older adults, they're lacking social supports and oftentimes have thin networks of providers or of social connectedness. And a recent survey done in New York City with our care management team found that 25% of the respondents indicated they did not know who they would call should they have an emergency. And this leads to that social disconnectedness and that sense of isolation that can happen. And oftentimes it's going to be the aging network and potentially nutrition programs and home delivered meals that may be that person that sees that a person is at risk or in danger. And so that may, be a really strong connector for LGBTQ plus older adults. Next slide. So some of the other key findings, again, we know that LGBTQ plus older adults oftentimes have a shrinking social network. We may be less likely to have children, more likely to live alone as we age, and oftentimes rely on same aged peers. And, I oftentimes reflect on even my own circle. Most of my circle are, friends that are the same age or older than me. And, so as I think about my own aging trajectory, who will be there to support me as I age? What will that look like? And that, really causes me to kind of pause and think about what are the services and supports that I need to be putting in place for my own aging and that aging of my peers and friends. There's also discrimination when accessing housing. So, if LGBTQ plus older adults fear being outed, fear disclosing their sexual orientation and gender identity, then the answer to that may be to retreat and to not, reach out and really develop those relationships that can keep us from being so socially isolated as we age. Next slide. We also found that the US Census Household Pulse Survey had some data on LGBTQ plus aging that I just really wanted to highlight and make sure that we think about in this work. This survey found that there was more economic insecurity among LGBTQ plus older adults, including food insecurity. The impacts of economic disparities were heightened among LGBTQ plus cohorts that also identify within the Black, Asian Pacific Island, and Hispanic communities. So how are we accounting for those intersections of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and age? All of those factors compound and can lead to even greater risk of social isolation as we age. More LGBTQ plus people report being prescribed medication for mental health. And again, mental health can also, be a factor when looking at social isolation and social connectedness. So these are just all some of the data points that I wanted to really bring to light here today. And, you can dig more into this survey if you'd like to, and we provided a link to that survey on this page. Next slide. So how can the Aging Network respond to, the need for better social connectedness within LGBTQ plus communities? First, we really encourage organizations to look at your own non-discrimination policies. Are they inclusive of sexual orientation and gender identity? If not, we encourage you to look at changing those policies. For many folks within the LGBTQ plus community, we're conditioned to seek organizations that have non-discrimination policies that are inclusive of us. And many times we may pass an organization up if we don't feel like it's a place that we're going to be welcomed and supported. Develop LGBT outreach materials that, and this was a typo and I apologize for that, but develop outreach materials where LGBTQ plus people see themselves reflected. Do you have LGBTQ plus couples, on your outreach materials? Do you have other race, ethnicity, and diversity awareness within your outreach materials? Those are always really important for folks to see themselves reflected. Provide LGBTQ plus cultural competency training to volunteers and employees. Think about connecting with local LGBTQ plus organizations and community groups for outreach, not only outreach to serve people, but outreach for volunteers, employment, and for board positions that may be open. When LGBTQ plus folks see themselves represented in an organization, then they're more likely to seek those supports as well. And I'd like to just pause and share a quick story about, how impactful this can be. I have a friend who's an older lesbian here in the community, and she lost her life partner at the beginning of COVID. And as well, she lost a lot of her social network during the last 4 years. She was really kind of socially isolated, except for a couple of us that were coming by to visit. And we recognized that she would benefit from receiving Meals on Wheels. And so one of our other friends who actually volunteers and for home delivered meals was able to speak with her about the benefits of receiving home delivered meals. And, so she's now been receiving those meals for about 2 years, and she looks forward to that home delivered meal driver. Every Saturday when I go to see her, she usually has a new story to share. And a lot of times, it's about how special he makes her feel, that he's very, in tune with her own cultural background and, wants to talk about her upbringing, and also wants to make sure that she has enough food. And so she'll say, he brings me extra all the time. And for her, she feels like that's, something very special. He may also be bringing a little bit extra to other people, but she doesn't know that. What she knows is that this is a person who's really taken an interest in her and wants to be connected with her. And so I think this is just a really important example of how important home delivered meals and nutrition programs can be for folks. Next slide. I now want to share some of the national resources that are there for you all. And, if you're serving LGBTQ plus older adults that would benefit from being more socially connected with programs, then these are all programs that you can refer LGBTQ plus folks to. One of our first programs is our Sage Sense program. This is a digital financial wellness app, and people can sign up to take part in this program. We'll learn about financial security, savings, paying off loans. And we have found that the majority of people who have taken part in this program are actually saving money and paying down debt. So I think that speaks to the success of this program, and also just helps people, again, to have the financial wellness that they need to continue to be socially connected. Next slide. This next program is called Sage Hear Me, and this again is an app that's designed to provide people with round-the-clock access to culturally competent and empathetic LGBTQ plus and allied listeners. It is done through a chat-based program, and people sign up and then they're matched with a volunteer where they can chat and be in connection with folks. And this can really help to reduce some of that social isolation that people feel. They say that just having someone you can reach out to in the moment who responds to you can really help to alleviate some of that social isolation that people oftentimes feel. So again, this is available to anyone across the country. Next slide. We also have our growing Sage Collab partner program. This is our partnership program across the country. We have 73 Sage Collab partners in 37 states, DC, and Puerto Rico. And this is a growing network, and we encourage you at the local level to see if there's a Sage Collab partner in your community. And if so, reach out to them and see how you can partner with them, because they may be serving older adults that, like my friend, didn't recognize that she qualified for home delivered meals, or didn't think that it was designed for her. And so it's really important that we reach out to our communities to make sure that they're aware of the resources that you all offer. So we encourage you to, see if there's a Sage Collab partner. If there is, feel free to email me and I'll connect you with that partner at your local level. Next slide. This is our National Housing Initiative. Again, social connectedness oftentimes goes back to the feeling of safety and feeling like they're a part of their community. The National Housing Initiative, it has a growing list of affordable housing across the country that is LGBTQ plus welcoming and inclusive. And, you can go to their website and see what housing providers may be in your community. These would also be other important touch points for outreach, because many of our folks who are living in affordable housing may also qualify for home delivered meals. So this could be another important outreach space for your organizations. Next slide. And then we also have our National Resource Center. Erin touched on this a little bit in her presentation. We have a number of resource guides covering best practices, caregiving, aging network planning tools, housing supports, elder justice. This just scratches the surface. We have over 1,000 resources that live on our website. We encourage you to take a look at those and download resources that you feel may be beneficial to your work, and also share them within your networks with colleagues and LGBTQ plus older adults. Next slide. Another program that we have is our Finding Inclusive Long-Term Care, or that's the name of the guide. The program is the Long-Term Care Quality Index, and this is a program between SAGE and the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, and we're working with a growing number of long-term care communities across the country who want to be welcoming and inclusive. We have over 200 residential, assisted living, skilled nursing, affordable housing, senior apartments that have joined this work. And again, if you're serving LGBTQ plus older adults who are looking for a community to call home as they age and one where they can feel safe and secure, then this would be a resource list to help them find those housing providers. The other thing here is you may be in contact with a long-term care community that you feel would be a good candidate to be a part of the long-term care quality index. We encourage you to share information about this program with those communities, because one of the biggest fears for LGBTQ plus older adults is just thinking about where they will age. Where is that place that they know they will feel comfortable to call home should the time come? And so we're really excited to see how this program grows over time. Next slide. And then finally, our Sage Care training and credentialing program. If your nutrition program is part of an area agency on aging or another ACL funded program like that, we encourage you to take part in the Sage Care training. And, this really helps your volunteers and your employees to have that level of LGBTQ plus cultural competency that makes them feel more comfortable to engage and work with LGBTQ plus older adults. And those are just a few of the resources that we have available to you, as well as some of the data that, really helps to highlight the need for this work. And I'm just going to close with a quote here. I think if you do one more click, Aaron. Oh, where'd my quote go? It went away. We had a quote there at one point. Let me find it for you, because the picture's beautiful. That's actually from the front yard at my family farm in Oklahoma. But the quote says, sometimes the person who has been there for everyone else needs someone to be there for them. And, when I think about so many of our older adults, they've provided care and support to their children, to their families, to their friends, to their neighbors. And oftentimes at the end of life, they can be left alone and just feeling lonely. And so how do we make sure that folks feel connected back to their community and their services? And with that, I'll share my contact information and turn it back over to you, Aaron.
Cheryl, thank you so much. One, I do want to comment. So when Cheryl and I met, we did find the connection with Oklahoma. I went to Oklahoma State University and lived in Oklahoma for 5.5 years, kind of, an extended program there. But Cheryl, I know you're from the panhandle of Oklahoma, and it's rare to see trees there. So I would not have guessed that was necessarily from your farm, but I was told that any tree that's in the panhandle of Oklahoma was planted there. That's not natural. But moving more to the content, thank you so much. There are so many resources available, and I think it's hard for me to remember sometimes what is available to us. And we kind of get caught up in our own little world and just day-to-day tasks that we can sometimes forget about. We might not be doing all we can to reach these, the older adults in our communities. I really also appreciated the financial piece and the reminder that sometimes finances can be a barrier to connectedness. And so I really appreciate kind of that out of the box thinking, if you will, because we don't always think about all of those different factors that are playing a role. We do have a few minutes left, and so I want to open it up to any questions from anyone. This is a great time to utilize Cheryl as a resource because she's phenomenal. And she's an Okie, so she's got that going for her too. And feel free to take yourself off of mute if you want. Kind of keep an eye on the chat as well, but we're gonna have a shy group today. I find that hard to believe.
So I have a question for the audience.
Perfect.
How many of you know that you're serving LGBTQ plus older adults today in your outreach and work?
And you can just add that in the chat.
Okay, great. We have one person that says I do, and we have a hand that came up. Nina.
Yeah, I realized that might look like I had a question. I was just raising my hand, but I'll ask a question. I am
Sorry,
That's okay.
I
I'm a
meant to
little
unmute myself,
curious.
I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Um, if there are groups, organizing groups of LGBT older adults, that wanted to engage or like start up new, meal programs or visit different sites together, are there resources for that, or is it really just connecting with their local kind of senior centers and starting there?
I think I know what you're asking there, Nina. Um, one thing that I encourage is for LGBTQ plus older adults who may be wanting to start some sort of like lunch and learn to actually reach out to their area agencies on aging and their senior centers and see if there's a connection there where they could maybe collaborate with an existing organization that's doing that work. And to see if there's maybe a dedicated afternoon or lunchtime where they could come and also join in those types of activities. I think that's a really nice way to be inclusive.
And it also really.
Thank you. Yeah, coming from an area agency on aging and age options. Yeah, I was curious, but maybe that's helpful for others too. That might not be aware of those resources. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nina. And I'm glad to see folks, in the chat that said, yes, we're serving LGBTQ plus older adults. When I first started doing this work in 2008, and I would be in a space like this and ask the question, more often than not, the answer would be no. We do not serve we don't have LGBTQ plus people here. And so it's always refreshing today to ask this question and see people raising their hand and saying, yes, we are serving LGBTQ plus older adults. 10 years ago, they were as well. We just weren't maybe asking the questions, and we maybe didn't have the cultural awareness that we do have today to really make sure that our spaces are welcoming and in a place that people feel like they can be their true selves. So thank you for those that are doing this work.
All right. Well, I just want to thank you again, Cheryl. It's a whole nother topic, but I saw Cheryl speak at the American Society on Aging conference last year in Atlanta about serving elders that identify as LGBTQ plus in rural communities. And having grown up in a rural community and going to school in a rural community, it just really was fascinating to me. And I think it's discussions that we need to continue to have. So that might be the next one I reach out to you about, Cheryl, because I think that
Happy to do
area for sure.
And
right.
On that,
yes.
Aaron, we have several Sage Collab partners that are now working specifically in rural communities. So we could maybe do a panel.
Ooh, I like this. I like this idea. So yeah, if you're interested in this, before we get around to it, check out that Sage Collab partnership and kind of see what's in the area. Because I think that, yeah, there's a lot going on and I'm excited to dig into it myself. All right. Well, thank you again. This will be recorded and it will be up on our website once we get it up. So if you're not following us on social media or subscribing to our newsletter, make sure that you do that so you know when it comes out. And with that, we will let everyone go for the rest of the afternoon. Thanks again for joining. Bye.
Thank you, Aaron. Bye-bye.